You don't always receive what you deserve in life, you get what you boldly ask for. Many people wish for more respect, more support, more freedom. But wishing alone changes nothing. They keep silent, hoping the world will eventually notice their effort. But silence rarely gets rewarded. If you never express what you need, how will anyone know? Most people hesitate to ask because they fear looking weak or selfish. But let's be honest, that fear only keeps you stuck. Nothing changes until you open your mouth and speak your truth. Asking for what you need clearly, calmly, and confidently is not just a useful skill, it's one of the most powerful habits you can master. This audiobook isn't about manipulation or demands. It's about understanding your own worth and communicating it to the world. You'll learn how to stop overthinking, to push past hesitation, and to say what needs to be said. You'll begin to see how the fear of rejection and the hunger for approval shape our behavior and how you can rewrite those patterns. You've spent too long holding it all in. It's time to speak, to ask, and to act, not with arrogance, but with purpose. The difference between those who get what they want and those who don't isn't luck. It's intention. It's clarity. It's courage. Let's begin with the mind because that's where everything starts. You have to train your thoughts to accept that you deserve more. You see, it doesn't begin with wealth or talent. It starts with belief in your value. If deep down you don't think you're worthy of better, you'll never go after it. You'll accept less, tell yourself it's fine, and let opportunities slip past. And that's how entire lives get built, not from limitations, but from internal beliefs about what's possible. Before anything external shifts, your internal dialogue must change. You don't need to fix your job or your relationships first. You need to fix the way you think about yourself. The person who speaks up, who steps forward, who gets more from life, they aren't any more special than you. They just believe they're allowed to ask, that they have every right to. So many people shrink themselves. They play small. They say, I'm fine when they're hurting. They minimize their needs, apologize for their ambitions, and stay quiet so others feel comfortable. But here's the truth. Life doesn't reward people for being invisible. It rewards people who stand in their worth and speak from it. It rewards the bold. But boldness isn't just about speaking loudly, it's about how you speak to yourself when no one's listening. You need to say to yourself, I'm not meant for less. I'm allowed to want more. I'm going to start asking for it. It starts with your self-talk. That voice in your head, is it lifting you up or tearing you down? Do you constantly talk yourself out of trying? Do you tell yourself you're not ready, not good enough, not smart enough? That voice is your cage. You won't ask for anything if you believe you don't deserve anything. You need to replace those inner insults with strength. You need to stand in front of the mirror and remind yourself, I matter. I'm capable. I have value to offer. This is not arrogance. It's self-respect. Potential means nothing if you don't believe in it. You owe it to yourself to speak up, to ask for time, for opportunities, for fairness, for clarity. But none of that will happen until you believe you're worthy of asking. Many of us were taught not to ask, to be grateful for whatever little we had, to not expect too much. That kind of thinking may have kept peace at home, but it won't help you build the life you truly want. That mindset needs to be unlearned. Start small. Speak up when something feels off. Don't swallow your thoughts just to avoid tension. If you need more, say it. If you're not okay, say it. If you're aiming high, don't whisper your goals. Remember, what you tolerate becomes your standard. So raise your standard. Sometimes people think they're being polite by not asking. They say, I don't want to be a burden. But let me tell you, asking is not a burden. It's a necessity. If you're doing your part, if you're putting in effort, if you're showing up, then speaking up is not selfish. It's responsible. Responsible people ask. They don't rely on others to guess. They don't bottle everything inside. They express their needs with clarity. But you must begin with yourself. Each morning, look yourself in the mirror and remind yourself, I'm not here to blend in. I'm here to build. I'm here to grow. I'm here to speak. That daily mental declaration will change how you walk through the world. It will change how you greet people, how you show up in rooms, how you speak in meetings. People can feel when you believe in yourself, and they treat you accordingly. You don't get what you want by waiting quietly. You get what you want by asking with confidence and purpose. People who know their worth don't settle. They don't beg for attention. They don't explain themselves endlessly. They move with strength because they know what they bring. Changing your inner dialogue won't happen overnight. You've been thinking the same limiting thoughts for years. You've been saying, I can't, and I'm not ready for far too long. That mindset has become your default, but it can be changed. Every time you hear yourself doubt your value, interrupt it. Replace it. Say, I may not have it all figured out, but I'm learning. I may not be perfect, but I'm progressing. I may feel scared, but I'm still moving forward. That's how you train your mind. Not by waiting for confidence to show up, but by creating it through repetition. Like a muscle, self-belief gets stronger the more you use it. And once that voice inside you changes, everything else follows. You'll stop sitting quietly. You'll stop making excuses. You'll stop waiting for someone else to choose you. When you believe you deserve more, you stop chasing things that don't align. You walk away from what drains you. You set standards that match your vision. And you ask for what you need without guilt, without hesitation. Everything starts in your mind. That's the battlefield. If you win there, you begin to win everywhere else. Life has more to offer, but it only gives to those who are willing to ask, and ask with belief. Not halfway. Not on some days. Every day. With conviction. Because when you truly believe in your value, the way you speak changes. The way you move changes. And people start to respond. This world isn't just for those who wait. It's for those who ask. Most people don't ask for what they want because they carry a silent belief that speaking up makes them a problem. They think that asking is bothering others, that it's rude, that it will make people uncomfortable or annoyed. And because of that belief, they hesitate. They stay quiet. They pull back at the very moment they should step forward. But that hesitation doesn't come from logic, it comes from fear. You feel it in your body before you even speak. Your throat tightens. Your chest feels heavy. Your voice starts to shrink. It's not because you're trying to be polite, it's because your brain is trying to protect you from rejection, from discomfort, from being misunderstood or judged. So instead of risking any of that, you say nothing. You swallow your needs. You push your desires down. You play the quiet role. And in that silence, nothing changes. Your needs go unmet. Your dreams stay parked. Your potential gets hidden, not because you're not worthy, but because you didn't express it. This happens to good people, smart people, people with ideas, with ambition, with something real to offer. They live under a false belief that it's wrong to want something, that needing help is weakness, that it's better to stay silent than to risk being seen. But here's the truth, asking is not weakness. Asking is strength. It takes strength to say, I need help. It takes courage to say, I don't understand this. It takes clarity to say, I deserve better than this. Weakness stays silent. Strength speaks when it matters. You have to retrain your thinking. You need to remove the emotional link between asking and being a burden. Because asking, when done with honesty and clarity, is not a disruption. It's progress. It's growth. It's momentum. Nobody builds a great life alone. Everyone needs help at some point. Everyone. The people who move forward fastest are not those who try to do it all alone, they're the ones who know how to ask for what they need. If you grew up in an environment where asking was treated like a problem, that memory stays in your nervous system. It becomes your default setting. So when you need something, your instinct is to avoid the conversation, to hold back the message, to wait for the right moment that never comes. That's not timing, that's conditioning. And it can be rewritten. Start by observing reality. Look around you. Who's getting results? Who's making progress? It's not always the smartest or the most deserving. Often, it's the person who had the guts to ask, to send the message, to make the phone call, to walk up and say, can we talk? Are they bothering anyone? No, they're doing what strong people do. They're being clear about what they need. People can't read your mind. If you don't speak, they don't know. They won't guess. They'll assume everything is fine. They'll move on. And you'll be left behind, not because your needs weren't valid, but because they were invisible. Healthy relationships, personal, professional, everything in between, depend on clarity. That means you must ask. Clearly, directly, without apology. When you stop seeing asking as a disruption and start seeing it as a responsibility, your confidence begins to shift. You carry yourself differently. You no longer feel guilty for having needs. You stop watering down your words. You begin to speak from a place of grounded strength. Remember this, most people are busy thinking about themselves, their own problems, their own insecurities. They're not sitting around judging your ask. And if they are bothered by it, that's about them, not you. You're not here to keep everyone comfortable. You're here to grow. You're here to contribute. And growth requires communication. It requires support. And support comes when you ask for it. You don't need to beg. You don't need to explain every detail. You just need to be clear, calm, honest. Say, would you be open to this? Can you help me with this? Here's what I'm looking for. These are not demands. These are not signs of weakness. They're evidence of a person who knows what they want and is willing to step up for it. You don't have to shout to be strong. You just have to be honest. Speak your truth. Respect your voice. Be direct, not aggressive. Be grounded, not apologetic. Be clear, not vague. Don't expect people to read between the lines. Don't drop hints. Don't hope someone magically understands. That's not strength, that's passivity. And passivity breeds resentment. If you don't want to be overlooked, stop overlooking yourself. When you ask, you bring things into motion. You open the door to conversation. You create clarity. You move energy forward. And yes, sometimes the answer will be no. That's okay. A no is not failure. A no is direction. A no gives you clarity. A no lets you course correct. A no closes one door so you can go find the next. But silence? Silence gives you nothing. No feedback. No clarity. No progress. Just the heavy weight of wondering what could have happened if you'd spoken up. There's incredible power in asking. Because before you can ask clearly, you have to think clearly. You have to pause and ask yourself, what do I truly want? That moment of reflection creates self-awareness. It sharpens your intention. And from that intention, your words become powerful. If someone thinks you're asking for too much, that's not your burden to carry. Your ask is your standard. And if someone can't meet that standard, thank them and move on. But don't lower your ask just to make others comfortable. People don't grow because they play safe. They grow because they step out of safety. Asking isn't always comfortable. It makes you visible. It opens you up to judgment. But it also opens doors. Think about the opportunities you've missed, not because they were impossible, but because you were afraid to ask. The connections you never made. The help you never received. The feedback you never got. All because you stayed silent. Train yourself to ask. Even when your heart pounds. Even when it feels awkward. Even when it scares you. The more you do it, the less fear it holds. Your brain starts to see asking not as danger, but as progress. Repetition is how habits are built. Ask one honest question, then another, then another. Each time, your fear shrinks, your clarity grows, and your confidence gets stronger. Eventually, asking becomes part of who you are. You become someone who doesn't hesitate, who doesn't wait, who moves forward with clarity and strength. So shift your mindset. Asking is not bothering. Asking is building. It builds your confidence. It builds your future. It builds your peace. Don't stay quiet to avoid discomfort. That's not strength, that's surrender. Speak, ask, act, move. And if someone is truly disturbed by your voice, by your presence, by your clarity, then they were never meant to support you anyway. Your life changes the moment you decide to speak. Not perfectly, not loudly, just honestly. That's where it all begins. When you feel nervous, your body tries to shield you from discomfort. Your hands might sweat, your stomach might tighten, and your voice may start to tremble. That's your body doing what it was designed to do, protect you from what it thinks is danger. But the truth is, speaking your needs isn't dangerous. It only feels that way because your mind has linked the act of expressing yourself with risk. Risk of rejection. Risk of being misunderstood. Risk of upsetting someone. That discomfort doesn't mean you should retreat. It means you should keep going. Most people stay silent not because they have nothing to say, but because they never learned how to manage that nervous feeling. Somewhere along the way, they were taught that staying quiet was safer, that expressing their needs might shake the peace, that asking might lead to tension or judgment. So they hold it in, again and again, and eventually it becomes second nature. When something bothers them, they smile and nod. When something feels off, they shrug and stay quiet. When they need help, they convince themselves they're fine. But inside, they're not fine. They're frustrated. They feel unheard. They feel overlooked, not because others don't care, but because they never made their needs visible. The world responds to what you express. If you stay silent, the world assumes you're okay. People around you carry on, not out of neglect, but because you never gave them the signal. And over time, that silence creates roles. Invisible ones. You become the one who doesn't complain. The one who never asks for much. The one who goes with the flow. But that role isn't real, it's just a mask you put on to avoid discomfort. It's not about how talented you are. It's not about how smart you are. It's about whether or not you speak when it counts. You may feel nervous. That's human. But your needs are still valid. They still matter. They still deserve to be heard. Even the smallest request, if it matters to you, is worth saying. And every time you speak up, you build self-respect. You teach yourself that your voice counts. You reinforce the message that your needs deserve space. Confidence is not a magical gift. It's a muscle, and it grows every time you speak when it's easier to stay quiet. You don't have to wait until you stop feeling nervous. You just have to speak through it. Courage is not the absence of nerves. It's moving forward in spite of them. Nervousness means you care. It means you're growing. It's not a red light. It's a sign you're stepping into your edge. So don't run from it. Let it walk beside you, but don't let it lead. Start small. Speak in low-risk situations. Ask someone to explain something. Ask for a small favor. Request clarification. These tiny moments train your nervous system to stop associating speaking with danger. Use simple words. You don't need the perfect phrase. You don't need a speech. You just need truth. Clear, respectful truth. Say it calmly. Say it slowly if you need to. But say it. Your hands might tremble the first time. That's okay. Speak anyway. You might feel awkward. Do it anyway. The more you speak, the stronger your internal voice becomes. That voice that whispers, "I can do this," becomes louder. That sense of empowerment, of ownership, of self-trust, it grows. You begin to feel more at ease. Not because life gets easier, but because you're no longer hiding. Most people worry that if they express their needs, others will think less of them. But the opposite is often true. When you speak with honesty and calm, people respect it. Even if they don't agree, they appreciate the clarity. Clarity builds trust. Trust strengthens relationships. Communication creates peace, not silence. Keeping your needs inside doesn't protect your peace. It poisons it. Over time, that unspoken weight turns into tension, confusion, and even resentment. People don't know why you're distant. You don't know why they're not understanding you. And the cycle continues, all because the words were never said. So speak. Early. Honestly. Calmly. Directly. Some people worry they'll look needy or weak. But everyone has needs. Strong people don't pretend to have it all figured out. They don't suppress their voice to avoid conflict. They take responsibility for expressing what they need. They don't manipulate. They don't beg. They just speak. They say, "Here's where I am. Here's what I need." They listen too. That's real strength. You're not guaranteed to get every need met. That's life. But unspoken needs have no chance of being met. When you speak, you give life a chance to respond. You open the door. You step into alignment. And even if you don't get what you asked for, you gain something powerful, your own respect. If you were raised in an environment where speaking up got you punished, mocked, or dismissed, it will take time to rewire that belief. But it is absolutely possible. You start by reminding yourself daily, my voice matters. My emotions have value. My experience is valid. When you feel nervous, pause. Take a breath. Then speak. That one act, over and over, changes everything. The people who get their needs met are not the loudest. They're not the most educated. They're not the most eloquent. They are the clearest. They know how to say, "This is what I need," without shame, without apology, without waiting for permission. They've practiced. They've trained. They've chosen to speak even when it's uncomfortable, until it became second nature. You don't need to shout. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to stop hiding. Your voice is power. It's not the absence of fear that makes someone powerful. It's the willingness to speak while still feeling it. Don't wait for the fear to vanish. It might not. What matters is what you do with it. So speak even when your hands shake, even when your heart pounds, even when you're not sure how it will land. Because every time you speak, you reclaim a little more of your power. And slowly, the world starts to shift around you because you've shifted how you show up in it. You've been waiting for the right moment, waiting for someone to notice you, waiting for someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Now's your time." Waiting for a sign, an invitation, an external push. But that moment never comes. Because in real life, no one hands you permission. No one gives you a pass. No one pulls you to the front of the line and says, "Go ahead. You're ready now." And while you're waiting, time is slipping by. Opportunities are being claimed. Not by people who are more talented or more qualified, but by people who ask. People who move forward even when they don't feel 100% ready. People who don't wait for perfect timing. They create momentum by taking initiative. Waiting feels safe. Asking feels risky. That's why most people stay in place. They're afraid, not of failure, but of being seen. Of being told no. Of looking like they want too much. But that fear? It's not helping you. It's paralyzing you. It convinces you to wait another week, another month, another year, and that delay turns into a lifestyle. Here's what you have to understand. The fear of asking is learned, and so is the belief that you need permission. Maybe someone told you not to speak unless spoken to. Maybe someone made you feel like your needs were too much. Maybe you were raised to wait your turn, to never rush forward, to never want too loudly. But that conditioning? It's not your future, unless you choose to keep living by it. If you want something, stop waiting. Ask. Ask even if you don't feel completely ready. Ask even if you're not sure what the response will be. Ask because every single ask is a step forward, even if the answer is no. That word, no, won't break you. It might sting. It might feel disappointing. But it gives you something silence never will: clarity. No tells you where you stand. No gives you feedback. No teaches you what to do next. But waiting? Waiting gives you nothing but doubt and regret. You don't need a polished plan to begin. You don't need to feel fearless. What you need is a decision to act, to speak, to move. Growth never feels ready. Confidence comes after action, not before it. And the longer you stay in your head analyzing every possible outcome, the more overwhelmed you'll feel. There are people out there with half your skill and twice your progress. Why? Because they asked. They moved. They took the chance. They didn't wait for someone to unlock the next chapter for them. They walked through the door, uninvited, and made it theirs. The idea that someone else has to tell you you're ready is a lie. You're not in school anymore. There's no teacher handing out permission slips. Adulthood means this: you decide when to move. You decide when enough is enough. If you want something, ask for it. Not out of desperation, but from clarity. Not to beg, but to lead. Asking isn't a sign of weakness. It's a declaration of awareness. It says, I know what I need. I understand what matters. I'm willing to speak it. Don't let fear convince you to stay quiet. Don't water down your dreams to make others comfortable. Don't hold back just because someone might not understand your goal. Your vision wasn't built for everyone, it was built for you. Stop chasing the right time. It rarely shows up. The longer you wait for the stars to align, the more you miss. Take your chance now. And if someone says no, so what? You'll adjust. You'll ask someone else. You'll try a new way. The people who go far in life aren't the ones who got a yes on the first try, they're the ones who kept going after the first no. Rejection doesn't define you. How you respond to rejection does. You've seen it happen before. Someone with less experience walks into a room, speaks up, and walks out with the opportunity you wanted. And you think, that could have been me. And you're right. It could have been. The only difference? They asked. They didn't sit in silence, hoping someone would notice their potential. They expressed it. Clearly. With confidence, even if they were shaking inside. You're not stuck because you lack ability. You're stuck because you've been waiting too long. The moment you stop waiting is the moment your life starts to shift. You don't need to feel brave. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to move. One step. One ask. One decision. It can be as simple as, can I be part of this? Is there an opportunity here for me? I'm interested. What's the next step? These are not complex sentences. They're door openers. And once the door is open, anything is possible. You're allowed to walk into the room. You're allowed to make a case for yourself. You're allowed to raise your hand even if no one called your name. We've been trained to follow, to be polite, to wait our turn. But life doesn't work like that. There's no assigned seat in success. There's no line for confidence. You have to step forward, even when it feels awkward. You have to say what you want, even if you stumble the first time. You have to let go of the fear that asking makes you less. Doesn't. Asking makes you visible. Asking makes you powerful. You don't need applause. You don't need approval. You need movement. And movement starts with a single decision. I will no longer wait. So speak it. Ask it. Say, I'm no longer sitting in silence. I'm no longer waiting to be chosen. I'm choosing myself. And that's the shift that changes everything. Before you ask anyone for anything, support, guidance, opportunity, help, you need to pause and consider one important thing. How do they think? Because how people respond to your ask depends not just on what you say, but on what matters to them, what they value, what they fear, how they see the world. Most people don't think about this. They focus only on their own side. I want this, how do I get them to say yes? But effective asking isn't just about desire. It's about alignment. If you want to increase your chances of getting a yes, you need to step out of your shoes and into theirs. You need to understand their mindset, their motivations, their worries. You need to speak their language, not just with your words, but with your awareness. Everyone has a mental filter, shaped by their life experiences, their fears, and their values. What feels like a small, simple request to you might feel overwhelming to someone else. What seems logical to you might sound risky to them. They're not wrong. They're just different. And if you want your message to land, you have to meet them where they are. Start watching people more closely. Listen to how they speak. What do they repeat? What tone do they use when they talk about pressure, success, failure? What do they focus on, results or relationships, data or emotions? Some people are analytical, they need clarity, timelines, and structure. They don't respond well to vague ideas or emotional appeals. Others are heart-driven. They need connection, trust, and mutual respect before they agree to anything. There are those who value independence. If you come on too strong, they'll back away, not because your ask is wrong, but because they feel controlled. And then there are people who avoid conflict. They may smile and nod just to keep peace, even when they disagree. That's why understanding before asking is powerful. It doesn't make you manipulative, it makes you effective. Let's say you're going to ask your manager for a raise. If your manager is all about performance metrics, don't walk in talking about how hard you've been trying. Come with numbers. Show growth. Highlight results. Speak their language. But if your manager values loyalty, commitment, and team cohesion, show how you've supported the bigger picture. Emphasize your long-term dedication. Show that you're not just asking, you're contributing. The ask might be the same, but the approach, that's what changes everything. The same is true in your personal life. Let's say you're asking your partner for more time together. If there's someone who needs space to think and process, don't corner them during a heated moment. Give them time. Be patient. Be calm. Be kind. But if your partner craves emotional closeness and feels abandoned when you pull away, don't delay. Speak up. Let them know you're trying to connect, not criticize. Let them know your ask is coming from love, not conflict. Every person processes the world differently. And when you slow down to understand that, your words land deeper. They hit home. They make people feel safe, seen, and respected. Don't assume everyone sees things the way you do. Don't assume your ask is self-explanatory. Don't assume your intentions are obvious. Instead, ask yourself, what does this person care about? What are they worried about? What makes them feel appreciated or respected? What would make it easier for them to say yes? That shift in perspective doesn't just help your ask, it builds connection. It shows maturity. It creates mutual respect. Because people can feel when you've taken the time to consider them. Even if they don't say it out loud, they know. That's the kind of preparation that builds long-term trust. You don't need a degree in psychology. You just need to pay attention. When someone talks about their day, what do they emphasize? When they make decisions, what influences them? When they avoid something, what's the pattern? All of that is data. And the more you notice, the sharper your communication becomes. When your ask is shaped like a key, carefully crafted to fit the other person's mindset, you're not forcing your way in. You're unlocking cooperation. You're opening the possibility of a real yes. People are more likely to respond positively when they feel understood, not just heard. When they see that you've taken the time to align your ask with their reality. Sometimes even saying, I know this might be a difficult time, or I understand this is unexpected, shows maturity. It shows you're thoughtful, not desperate, that you've done the emotional work, not just the talking. If you want someone to listen to you, respect them enough to understand where they're coming from. And remember, not everyone will say yes. Some people will still say no. Some people will be too distracted, too scared, or too stuck in their own world to engage. That's not your fault. But when someone does say yes, it won't be luck. It'll be because you prepared. Because you asked with clarity and care. Because you weren't just speaking, you were connecting dot, and that earns you more than answers. It earns you respect. It earns you reputation. It builds real relationships. So before you walk into the conversation, pause, take a breath, ask yourself, what matters to this person? Ask yourself, how do they think? Then, speak from that place, not guessing, not hoping, but from grounded understanding. That's how strong people communicate. That's how smart people move forward. Not through force, but through awareness. Because the one who understands people becomes someone people listen to, trust, and want to work with. The word no, such a small word, but one that carries massive weight in people's minds. Most people never say what they really want because of that one word. They're afraid of hearing it, afraid of what it might mean, afraid of how it might make them feel. So instead of risking it, they stay silent. They pretend they don't want it that badly. They convince themselves to settle. But let's look deeper. It's not the word itself that holds so much power. It's the emotion behind it. It's the memories that come with it. It's what you think the no says about you. You hear no and your mind whispers, I'm not good enough. I shouldn't have asked. That door is closed forever. But that's not truth, that's emotion. And it's emotion that's been reinforced by your past. Maybe you asked for something as a child and were mocked. Maybe you tried something new and failed publicly. Maybe someone you trusted dismissed you and that pain stuck. So now, every time you consider asking for something again, your mind pulls up those old files. It plays those memories. It says, remember how that felt? Let's not go there again. And that's how fear wins. But let's be absolutely clear, no does not mean you failed. No does not mean you were wrong to ask. No does not mean you won't ever succeed. It simply means, not right now. Not this person. Not this method. That's it. When you start to reframe the meaning of no, everything changes. You stop seeing it as a rejection of you and start seeing it as information, direction, feedback, because that's what no really is, feedback. It tells you something about timing, about alignment, about readiness. It helps you recalibrate your path. But you'll never benefit from any of that if you're too afraid to face it. Your brain is wired to protect you from pain. Emotional pain, like rejection, triggers the same areas in the brain as physical pain. That's why no can hurt. But here's the good news, the brain is flexible. It can be rewired. You can teach your brain that no is not a threat. You can condition yourself to stay calm when you hear it. You can choose to hear it without attaching shame. And how do you do that? You face it, over and over, until it stops owning you. You don't build resilience through hiding. You build it through exposure. Like lifting weights at the gym, your tolerance for discomfort grows with each rep. Every time you ask and hear no and still keep going, your mental strength grows. You realize the world doesn't end when someone declines. You realize you don't crumble. You realize no isn't a death sentence, it's just a moment. And moments pass. Think about it this way. Every no clears the path to a better yes. Every closed door guides you to the next one. Every rejection sharpens your clarity. You learn, you adjust, and you rise. But that will never happen if you're too scared to ask. The people you admire, the ones who seem fearless, they've heard no more than you can imagine. They've been turned down, shut out, laughed at, dismissed. But they didn't let that stop them. They didn't take it personally. They didn't fold. They kept asking. They kept evolving. That's what separates the stuck from the successful. Not magic, not luck, just the willingness to hear no and keep moving. It's time to challenge the story in your head, the one that says no means you're unworthy. Ask yourself, where did that belief come from? Who planted it? Who reinforced it? And why does it still have power over you today? It's time to cut the cord. A no is not a reflection of your value. It's not a reflection of your future. It's simply a redirection. It's a checkpoint. And sometimes it's a blessing. Because let's be honest, not every yes is good for you. Some yes answers come with compromise. Some come with conditions. Some doors are better left closed. But when you fear no so much that you never ask, you rob yourself of all the good yes that are out there waiting. You don't have to like rejection, but you do need to respect what it teaches you. So practice hearing it. Ask in low-stakes situations. Make small requests. Let the word no land, then breathe, reset, and move forward. It's a muscle, and over time it gets stronger. And here's something else. The more comfortable you get with hearing no, the bolder your asks become. You stop filtering yourself. You stop shrinking. You stop trying to guess what will be accepted, and you start asking for what's true. And sometimes that truth is exactly what opens the door. The fear of hearing no has kept too many people living too small. They don't apply for the job. They don't ask for the raise. They don't speak up in meetings. They don't express their feelings in relationships. And then they wonder why life feels stuck. The truth? It's not because they're not talented. It's not because they don't deserve more. It's because they let one word, no, hold their life hostage. But that ends now. From this moment forward, you can decide that no is just a sound, not a sentence, not a label, not a verdict. It doesn't diminish your value. It doesn't cancel your potential. It doesn't define your worth. It's simply part of the process. A filter, a test, a lesson. You are not fragile. You are not weak. You are not foolish for wanting more. You're human. You're learning. And learning means stepping into situations where no is possible and asking anyway. Ask with clarity. Accept whatever answer comes. And remember, it's not the rejection that breaks you. It's the decision to give up because of it. And that you control. So keep asking. Let no be a moment, not a memory. And most importantly, let it be a stepping stone, not a stop sign. At first, asking feels uncomfortable. There's a tightness in your chest. Your voice doesn't feel steady. Your thoughts race. You imagine every worst-case scenario before a single word leaves your mouth. Your mind starts spinning stories. What if they laugh? What if they think I'm annoying? What if I sound weak or needy? That's the fear. And that fear doesn't just come from nowhere. It's built on moments, memories from the past. Times when you were told to be quiet. Times when someone brushed you off. Times when you tried and it didn't go well. Those moments leave scars. Not always visible, but deeply internal. And over time, they train your brain to avoid asking. To play it safe, you start to believe that silence is better. That not asking is somehow more respectful. You convince yourself that others will just figure out what you need. That if they care, they'll know. But that's not how life works. People are not mind readers. Most of the time, they're so caught up in their own world that they don't notice what you're holding in. So if you don't speak, you don't get. Not because you didn't deserve it, but because you didn't express it. The only way to break the fear of asking is through practice. Asking is a skill. Like anything else, it feels strange when you first start. You stumble. You second guess. You may not even get the wording right. But you don't stop. You keep going. You practice not for perfection, but for comfort. Because confidence doesn't arrive on its own. It shows up after repetition. The more you ask, the more your brain begins to understand that asking doesn't equal danger. That asking doesn't always lead to disaster. That most people respond better than you feared. And even when they say no, you survive. You move on. You adjust. You learn. And each time, you become a little more free. Your mind can't learn that asking is safe by thinking. It learns through doing. That's why you must practice not just once, but daily. In small ways, in simple ways, in real moments. Ask for clarification in a meeting. Ask for help on a task. Ask for feedback. Ask for space when you need it. Ask for a conversation when something doesn't sit right. These moments may feel minor, but they matter. They retrain your nervous system. They teach your brain that expressing your needs isn't rebellion, it's healthy. Each successful ask, whether the answer is yes or no, reinforces the truth. You can speak. You can survive. You can grow. And that growth shows. It shows in your posture, in your tone, in the way you enter a room. You no longer feel the need to stay small. You stop overthinking every word. You communicate directly, and people feel that clarity. But remember, asking doesn't mean demanding. It's not about being forceful or controlling. It's about being clear and honest. It means saying what you need without apologizing for it. It means understanding that you don't control the outcome, but you do control the effort. And that's where the real change happens, in the effort. One of the most harmful habits people develop is overthinking their ask to the point of paralysis. They sit on an idea for weeks, months, even years, analyzing every angle until they talk themselves out of asking at all. That habit destroys opportunity. But when you make asking a normal, natural part of how you live, that pressure disappears. It becomes communication, not confrontation. It becomes a moment, not a mountain. You don't need special training to get better at asking. You need willingness. You need consistency. You need to act even when it's awkward. You need to stop waiting for the fear to leave and start walking through it. Because that's how you take your power back. When you avoid asking, the fear grows stronger. But when you practice asking, that fear loses its grip. Can still be there, but it no longer drives your decisions. You're not trying to become fearless. You're trying to become familiar. Familiar with the process, the feeling, the rhythm. The unknown is where fear thrives. But once you've done something enough times, it's no longer unknown. It becomes normal. And what feels normal doesn't scare you anymore. Asking also builds emotional maturity. You stop tying your self-worth to someone else's answer. You stop taking rejection as proof that you're not enough. You begin to understand something most people never figure out. That people say no for all kinds of reasons, most of which have nothing to do with you. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they're stressed. Maybe they don't have the capacity. That doesn't make your ask wrong, it makes them human. And when you understand that, you become emotionally free. You're no longer crushed by someone's reaction. You no longer need every yes to feel worthy. You ask and move on. You ask and grow stronger. You ask because that's who you've become, someone who takes the lead in their own life. If you keep avoiding the ask, you also avoid growth. You avoid insight. You avoid opportunity. And slowly, you start living in a smaller version of your own life, not because you weren't capable of more, but because you never claimed it. You didn't speak it. You didn't show it. You didn't ask for it. And that's what asking really is, it's claiming. It's standing in your worth and putting it into words. It's saying, I matter enough to say this out loud. You don't have to make huge asks right away. Start where you are. Build the habit. Let it grow. Because when asking becomes as natural as breathing, fear no longer controls you. You no longer wait for the perfect moment. You no longer hope someone else will see your needs. You no longer live in hesitation. You live in clarity. And that clarity? That's the beginning of freedom. Most people don't get what they want, not because they're not worthy of it, but because they don't say it clearly. They hint. They soften. They speak in circles. They use vague language and expect others to read between the lines. And then they get frustrated when they're misunderstood or ignored. But the truth is simple. People can't meet your needs if they don't understand them. Clarity is powerful. It's not just about being heard. It's about being understood. It's about cutting through confusion. It's about getting results in your relationships, in your work, in your life. People don't respond to hints. They respond to directness, not harshness, not aggression. Just calm, simple, honest clarity. The reason so many people avoid being direct is because their mind tries to protect them from discomfort. Right before they ask for something meaningful, the fear kicks in. What if this sounds rude? What if I offend them? What if they think I'm difficult? So they water down their words. They over-explain. They say everything except the real thing. And in doing so, their message gets lost. The problem is, unclear communication doesn't protect your relationships, it damages them. It creates misunderstandings. It builds quiet resentment. It delays progress. It leads to people making assumptions that are often wrong. Clear communication, on the other hand, saves relationships. It reduces anxiety. It builds trust. It gets to the point, and people appreciate that more than you might think. But to speak clearly, you first have to know what you want. And that's where many people get stuck. They haven't taken the time to get honest with themselves. You can't express your needs if you haven't defined them. You can't ask for support if you don't know what kind of support you want. You can't move forward if your thoughts are tangled. So slow down. Get still. Ask yourself, what do I really want right now? What outcome am I hoping for? What do I need from this situation or this person? That kind of self-awareness is the first step toward powerful asking. Once you know what you want, say it. Simply. Directly. Without hiding it behind emotion or fluff. Don't say, I just feel like nobody respects me anymore. Say, I need more follow-through when we set commitments. Don't say, I'm overwhelmed lately and things feel weird. Say, I need some time to myself this weekend to reset. Don't say, I've been working hard and trying my best. Say, I'd like to talk about a possible raise or promotion. These are simple sentences. They don't take courage to memorize, they take courage to say. And that courage comes from understanding your truth. A lot of people avoid being direct because they don't want to seem rude. But there's a difference between being assertive and being aggressive. Aggression is about control. Assertion is about clarity. Assertiveness says, I value myself. And I also value you. That's why I'm being honest. And most people respond well to assertiveness, even if they don't immediately agree with your ask. They'll hear you, they'll understand you, and often they'll respect you even more for being real. The mind tries to overcomplicate things, tells you to wait, to reword, to make your ask more polite, more gentle, more hidden. But the longer you wait, the messier things get. That delay builds emotional tension. It creates a fog that nobody can navigate. If you want to rise above the fog, choose clarity over comfort. Speak simply. Speak cleanly. Speak early before things build up and become a storm. Because when you speak with clarity, you reclaim ownership of your life. You stop blaming people for not knowing what you never clearly said. You stop resenting people for not meeting needs you never clearly expressed. You stop expecting the world to guess what you've buried under layers of fear. Clarity is not just respectful, it's mature. It says, I know what I need and I'm willing to say it. And if someone walks away because of that, they were never aligned with your truth to begin with. Truth doesn't scare away the right people. It only removes the ones who weren't meant to be in your inner circle. The people who can handle your honesty will rise to meet it. You also need to be clear with yourself. Stop lying to yourself just to keep the peace. Don't pretend to be okay when you're not. Don't say you're fine when you're breaking down. Don't ignore your frustration because it's easier than speaking up. That internal confusion creates external chaos. The more honest you are with your own thoughts, the more clearly you'll be able to speak them. So take time alone. Journal. Reflect. Speak your thoughts out loud to yourself if you need to. Use a mirror. Use a friend. Speak in real sentences, not just thoughts in your head. You don't need fancy words. You don't need perfect timing. You just need honesty. When people hear that kind of directness, it surprises them in a good way. It makes them pay attention. It creates space for better conversations. It opens the door to mutual understanding. You don't need to fill every silence. Say what you need to say. And then pause. Let your words land. Let people process. Because sometimes it's not the ask that creates tension, it's the fear around the ask. The build-up, the guessing, the vague signals. That's what creates friction. Clarity removes all that noise. So from now on, speak as someone who respects their own time and respects the other person's time too. Say exactly what you want, not to control, but to be free. Free from guessing, free from tension, free from waiting for others to figure it out. Because real power comes from clarity. And when you speak with clarity, you become someone who lives with purpose. Someone who's not afraid of their truth. Once you begin to ask clearly, something important will start to happen. You'll begin to notice who truly listens and who doesn't, who respects your words, and who quietly dismisses them. Not everyone will respond well to your ask. Some people will ignore it. Some will dodge it. Some will act like they didn't hear you. Others might say yes, but make you feel like they're doing you a favor, like your request was somehow a burden. That's not random. That's not something to brush off. It's information. Because how someone reacts to your voice tells you everything about how much they value you, not just as a person, but as a presence, as a voice in the room, as a human being who deserves to be heard. Respect is not about always getting a yes. It's about how someone responds to you when you speak up. When someone genuinely respects you, they'll make space for your words. Even if they don't agree, even if they can't give you what you want, they'll listen. They'll respond thoughtfully. They'll appreciate that you had the courage to say something in the first place. But when someone consistently avoids your needs, when they dodge, mock, shame, or guilt trip you for expressing yourself, that's a sign. That's not communication. That's control. And if you keep tolerating that kind of response, your own mind will begin to shrink. Your self-respect will erode. You'll start to doubt yourself, not because your voice lost value, but because you kept handing it to people who refused to honor it. You have to pay attention to these patterns. When you express a boundary, how do they react? When you express a need, do they listen? Or do they twist it? Do they turn it into your fault? Do they get defensive? Do they call you too much? This matters. Because your energy is not infinite. Your voice is not disposable. And the more you give it to people who show you they won't hold it with care, the more you betray your own growth. Now, it's true, some people aren't used to you speaking up. Especially if you've spent years staying silent. If you've always said yes or it's fine, your new clarity might shake them. It might make them uncomfortable. That's not because your clarity is wrong. It's because it changes the power dynamic. It shifts the script. They no longer get to decide everything on your behalf. And that exposure can trigger resistance. They might say you're being difficult. They might accuse you of changing. They might guilt you with, "You never used to act this way." But that's not about your truth. That's about their comfort being disrupted. Don't shrink back just to keep that comfort intact. Your job is not to stay small so others can feel secure. Your job is to speak honestly and grow even if it rattles some of the connections around you. That doesn't mean you need to be cold. It doesn't mean you need to fight or argue. It means you need to notice, to observe, to say to yourself, that's a pattern, to acknowledge when someone repeatedly disrespects your voice, to stop rationalizing it, to stop hoping they'll change if you just say it better. Strong people don't repeat themselves endlessly to people who refuse to hear them. They adjust the room. They redirect their energy. That's not bitterness. That's wisdom. You don't build a life of peace and confidence by forcing people to value you. You build it by aligning yourself with people who already do. It's easy to get caught up in wanting to be liked. But being liked at the cost of being heard is a steep price. It's a quiet suffering. It's a daily self-erasure. Being liked is nice, but being respected is necessary. Respect is what allows real connection to grow. It's what allows communication to be honest. It's what builds safety, maturity, and longevity in relationships, whether personal or professional. You don't have to cut people off the first time they miss your message, but you do need to pay attention to the pattern. If someone always makes you feel guilty for asking, if they mock your boundaries, if they only hear you when it benefits them, that's not a safe place for your voice to grow. And your voice deserves space. It deserves care. It deserves alignment with people who are open enough to listen and strong enough to respond with clarity, not control. If someone consistently shuts you down, they're not rejecting just your ask, they're rejecting your evolution. And that rejection, painful as it might feel, is also a gift. It shows you where to stop pouring your energy. Because when someone respects your ask, it feels very different. They say, "I hear you. Thanks for telling me. I'm not sure, but let's talk about it. Here's where I'm coming from." Those responses open the door to growth. Even when the answer isn't yes, the relationship stays intact. The respect stays strong. That's what you want in your life, not people who say yes out of guilt or fear, but people who engage honestly, clearly, and respectfully. You can't control how others behave, but you can control what you continue to allow. And once you raise your standard for how your voice should be treated, the world around you begins to shift. You stop wasting time. You stop shrinking to fit. You start aligning with people and places that match your growth. So notice who leans in when you speak. Notice who remembers your words. Notice who acts like your voice carries weight. These people are rare and they're priceless. Value them. Nurture those connections. And just as importantly, give yourself permission to walk away from the ones that don't. Because protecting your voice isn't selfish, it's survival. And it's how you create a life of strength, honesty, and peace. Most people ask once and then stop. They put their request out there, wait for a response, and if nothing happens, they retreat. They assume that one effort should be enough. That if it doesn't work the first time, it wasn't meant to be. But asking once is not enough. To live a life of clarity, progress, and personal power, you must ask often and, just as importantly, take action every single time. This isn't about pushing people. It's not about being aggressive. It's about creating a habit, a new way of living where your voice isn't something you occasionally use, but something you use with purpose consistently. Because every time you ask, you train your brain to stop fearing the unknown. Every time you act on that ask, no matter how small, you teach your body to stop freezing when it's time to move. The mind is wired for safety. It prefers the known. That's why change feels hard, because asking, especially when it's new, feels like stepping into uncertainty. It feels like risk. And your brain, trying to protect you, says, let's not do that again. But growth and safety rarely live in the same room. To grow, you need movement. And movement comes from repetition. The more you ask, the more your brain realizes, this is normal. This is not danger. I can survive this. Each ask, each step, each follow-up begins to rewire how your nervous system responds. Instead of seeing asking as threat, it starts to see it as routine. And eventually, it becomes as natural as breathing. But asking alone isn't the finish line. The real progress happens in the action that follows. Some people get caught in the trap of only asking. They become addicted to feedback, to brainstorming, to gathering opinions. But they never do anything with the answers. They collect responses like souvenirs, but they don't move. This creates mental exhaustion because your brain fills with information, but there's no momentum. Action is what clears that fog. Action is what makes the vision real. When you ask and then move, even if the step is small, even if the outcome is uncertain, you shift from being a passive thinker to an active creator. You don't need all the answers. You don't need the perfect plan. You just need to do the next thing. Send the follow-up message. Make the call. Book the meeting. Make the edit. Take the step. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be consistent. Because consistency is what builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. When you keep showing up, even when it's uncomfortable, you prove to yourself that you can be counted on, that you are not at the mercy of your fear, that you are someone who keeps moving forward. That's how self-respect is built, not through motivation, but through motion. The people who get ahead are not always the most talented. They're the ones who ask even when they feel unsure and act even when the answer was no last time. They don't need to feel powerful before taking a step. They create their power by stepping. Momentum doesn't come from thinking, it comes from doing. And doing creates clarity far faster than sitting still ever will. You can analyze a decision forever and get nowhere. Or you can ask, act, adjust, and learn. And the more you do that, the more confident you become, not the kind of confidence that needs applause or permission, but the kind that's built on experience. When you live this way, asking often, acting consistently, you stop waiting for life to hand you something. You go out and create it. You stop depending on perfect timing, because you've built the skill of creating movement even when the timing isn't ideal. You become someone people pay attention to, not because you're flashy, but because you're focused. Not because you're loud, but because you're clear. You follow up. You stay in motion. You don't over-personalize rejection. You don't crumble when something doesn't work. You adjust, ask again, and take another step. This is what makes people unstoppable. And this is what's available to you right now. You don't need to wait until you feel like it. You don't need to wait until everything is calm. You don't need to wait until someone taps you on the shoulder and says you're allowed. You already are. So start asking. Start taking action. Start moving, not next week, not when you're less tired, not when it's more convenient now. Ask when it's easy. Ask when it's hard. Ask when you're tired. Ask when you're nervous. And every time you ask, follow it with a step, however small. Because each ask is a door, and action is the key. Even when that door doesn't lead where you thought, it leads somewhere. It gives you feedback. It gives you perspective. It sharpens your vision for next time. And over time, you become someone who isn't controlled by fear, but led by purpose. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to move. When you live this way, your identity changes. You become someone who doesn't stall, who doesn't freeze, who doesn't abandon themselves when things get uncomfortable. You become consistent. You become clear. You become powerful. Because the truth is, you were never lacking, you were just waiting. And now you don't have to wait anymore. You ask. You act. You grow. One step at a time. One ask at a time. One day at a time. And that's how you create a life that finally matches your potential. Not with luck. Not with perfection. With clarity, action, and repetition. Keep asking. Keep moving. Keep building. Your future is waiting, but it only opens for those who knock. And now it's your turn.